If anybody out there is curious why I've been filming so many videos of late using the black and white filter on my webcam, then this is why. I'm not really sure what to do about this distortion, this weird discoloration on my webcam. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So if anybody out there has an HP Pavilion and has experienced this problem or a similar problem with their webcam and knows how I can fix it, then please let me know. Okay, let's switch on the filter. There we go. Today I want to talk to you about jobs, more specifically the politicization of the jobs issue. Obviously, it's the #1 issue on the minds of many Americans. It's no secret that this recovery has been lethargic, certainly much slower and worse than past recoveries, even from very deep recessions. I think the angst over this sluggish recovery has given way to a ratcheting up of politically charged rhetoric. I want to start today with yet another clip from The Ed Show, the same episode. I think this is the 4th video I showed a clip from the same episode of The Ed Show, but he provided me with a lot of material. Let's watch.
The president says there are things we can do now, and we need Congress. If you're a fair-minded American watching tonight, you ask yourself the question, what has this Congress done to help this president move our jobs economy forward?
Well, Ed, they passed, if you say Congress, then you're talking about the whole Congress. So the Democratic Senate, the Republican House. The House of Representatives did pass a comprehensive growth agenda that reformed the tax code, strengthened, saved entitlement programs, Medicare and Social Security from bankruptcy, and also slashed the budget. It balanced the budget in the long run, but it didn't balance it for a while, several decades, I think. So, but it did cut a significant amount over the next 10 years. That was known as the Path to Prosperity, or the Ryan Budget Plan. It was rejected by the Senate. Then there was also Cut, Cap, and Balance, which was passed by the Republican House, and the Democratic Senate voted to table it. And I know that many people, especially on the left, like to think that the budget and the debt and the deficit, those are separate from the jobs issue, but they're really not. How Washington handles its fiscal matters impacts employment in the public and private sector. Huge government spending, like we have now, excessive government spending, crowds out private capital, and running huge deficits, adding to the national debt, that will drive interest rates up in the long run. It's something that I guess is lost on Ed Schultz and people like him because it just makes too much sense. I cut you off, Ed. What did you have to say?
Republicans, they have never wanted to be on the same team with President Obama. Senator Jim DeMint openly admitted that he wanted to break the president and make health care reform his Waterloo. That was July 9th, 2009. The South Carolina senator, well, he's back at it. He spit more of that garbage out again today.
We saw within a few days that this president was going to be heavy-handed. He was going to implement his agenda and pay back his political allies. And it just went on from there to Obamacare and then to Dodd-Frank. And it has been the most anti-business and I consider anti-American administration of my lifetime, of things that are just so anathema to the principles of freedom. And everything he has come up with, it centralizes more power in Washington, creates more socialist-style collectivist policies.
And we should point out that that was on a Christian radio station. A sitting United States senator just called the President of the United States anti-American. And he also said that President Obama was heavy-handed. What's more heavy-handed than a record number of filibusters?
Ooh, I know. What's more heavy-handed? How about forcing every American to buy health insurance, whether they want to or not? How about forcing insurance companies to cover people with pre-existing conditions, basically meaning that people can wait until they get sick to buy insurance? How about the manner in which the healthcare reform bill was passed? All alternative solutions proposed by conservatives were ignored, or they were mocked and derided and then dispensed with. Democratic members of Congress were threatened by their leadership in order to get their votes on this really less than adequate bill. A lot of people on the left were unhappy with Obamacare, and there was a lot of pressure brought to bear on them to vote for it in the end. The same thing with the stimulus, the heavy-handed manner in which it was passed. That's more heavy-handed than a record number of filibusters or whatever Ed was whining about. I mean, again, the Republican alternative stimulus, which according to an economic model created by Obama's own economic advisor, Christina Romer, would have created twice as many jobs at about half the cost. That wasn't even brought up for a vote. It's more heavy-handed. Oh, the president's behavior throughout this whole debt ceiling deal. Fear-mongering, trying to scare seniors by saying that Social Security checks might not be sent out on time. He knew that wasn't the case. Congress, there would be plenty of money to meet all Social Security obligations and to send out the checks on time, whether or not Congress raised the debt ceiling. And in fact, raising the specter of default, all he had to say was that we will never default on our obligations, whether Congress raises the debt ceiling or not, because all that it takes to keep us out of default is for the Treasury Secretary to pay our obligations, to pay the interest on the national debt. We will have more than enough money to do that, and pay Social Security and Medicare and our active duty servicemen and women. All of that. We'll have plenty of revenue to do that, even if Congress never raises the debt ceiling. All he had to do was say that, and he never did, because he was trying to make the crisis that would have resulted had Congress not raised the debt ceiling sound as dire as possible. That is heavy-handed, and it's certainly more heavy-handed than threatening to filibuster destructive legislation that would further hurt our economy. All right. Ed, do you have something more to say?
Other Republicans don't care what their constituents are screaming about. The only answer to the people who line their pockets. That's why the Tan Man is spending his summer vacation out on the links. On Tuesday, Boehner shot an 81 at a golf fundraiser on the exclusive Inverness Golf Club in Toledo, Ohio. I think we ought to do a town hall in Toledo, don't you? Boehner took a break from happy hour to go over to the clubhouse to take a cheap shot at the president today. American families and small businesses are hurting in this economy, and they are still asking, where are the jobs? President Obama likes to talk about being the adult in the room, but there's nothing adult about political grandstanding. So now, get a hold of this. It's political grandstanding if the president goes out and asks Congress to work in their home districts. It's political grandstanding if the president asks the Congress to do something on jobs, and he says there are things that they can do right now. Boehner and the Republicans have done nothing to create jobs, but everybody is pressing the president to come up with this plan. What plan do you want him to come up with? Hell, he's put more incentives on the table than any president in the last 30 years when it comes to small business, and they fought him every step of the way. Unless John Boehner spends less time working on his handicap and more time doing his job, the economy will be stuck in a bunker for a long time.
You know, this thing about playing golf, if I were you, Ed, then I'd be a bit more careful about what you choose to attack John Boehner for. I thought about adding up all the times that this president has played golf since he took office, uh, but fortunately I didn't have to because Fox News did that for me. Sean Hannity, go.
I think by now it's pretty clear this president is more interested in his celebrity status than solving the problems we face as a nation. Now, if you're not convinced, consider this. Tonight marks the 37th time the president has held a fundraiser since launching his re-election campaign. And by the way, at around the same time in his presidency, George W. Bush attended only 3. All right, let's say you're still not convinced. Let's head to the golf course, because President Obama certainly has, playing a grand total of 75 rounds of golf since taking office. Now, by comparison, George W. Bush, in his entire 8 years as president, played golf only 24 times. So that doesn't include basketball. That doesn't include the other concerts. That doesn't include the vacation trips. So how can anyone still defend President Obama's record? It's beyond me.
Well, I think that about says it all. You hear all these cliche terms politicians say. Americans are hurting. Americans want to know, where are the jobs? Americans voted for divided government, but they did not vote for dysfunctional government. These are all nice sound bites, but the fact of the matter is, this president has been, and his allies in Congress have been standing in the way of what it would take to facilitate a robust economic recovery, like the kind we've seen in the past. And he's going on this listening tour now, which is nice, but he really, people say he's a very smart guy. I'd like to think that he's actually not, that he's too stupid to know what policies would really kick this recovery up and get a real recovery going. Because the alternative would be that he is very smart and he knows that the policies he's been pushing, the policies he's advocating, are not helping the economy. In many cases, they're actually hurting the economy, and yet he continues to do them, which would mean he's basically willfully, or at least knowingly, destroying this country. The only other option would be that he is a very smart guy, but he's so steeped in ideology that he doesn't want to admit, or he can't admit or accept, that his policies have hurt the economy and that the other side is right. But of course, if he did that, then he wouldn't get reelected, because his far left base, a lot of them, would abandon him. His fundraising would dry up. I'm just one man. I don't know that I can influence anybody of import, but I have something to contribute to our political discourse, and however large or small the audience I garner is, I feel like I ought to put my opinions out there. So let me know what you think. Leave a comment, post a response, check out my website, go to my blog. There's an article on there I put up a week or two ago that I'm especially proud of. 5 left-wing myths about the economy. Read it, comment on it. Until next time, don't mess with the right-wing genius.